Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of High Velocity Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today on the show, we have Josh Kim, and he is with Sba Accelerator. Welcome, Josh.
Afternoon, Lee. Great to be on with you today.
Well, I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about Sba. How you serving folks?
Yeah, so we specialize in helping business owners navigating what is otherwise a confusing process of seeking SBA financing. I've got a bit of a backstory myself with leveraging these SBA loans for a couple of my own business ventures in the past, and I have found that a lot of people are just not aware of what you can actually get done with an SBA loan. So we help business owners by consulting them through the process and helping make sure they get paired up with a good bank that's going to be able to help them, get the financing needs that they have.
So why don't we share with the listeners kind of a primer on how to go about getting an SBA loan? Because there's a lot of misconceptions. The SBA loan isn't really a loan from the SBA, right? You have to partner with a bank and the government backs it, but the loan is through a bank, right?
Correct. That's one of the biggest points of confusion that most people have is that they think, oh, well, am I not getting a loan from the SBA? And there's more confusion around that right now, just because, we do have like the EIDL loans and some of these other disaster loans that are out there. And so, that does sometimes create confusion. But the loans that I help people with Sba Accelerator are ones that are directly from banks, and they are just guaranteed by the SBA.
So now, who is eligible for an SBA loan?
Any for-profit business here in the United States is going to be eligible for an SBA loan. So a lot of people have questions about that. What kind of business is going to qualify? Do we do anything special? And, the answer is no, not really. So long as you're a for-profit company based in the United States, you will be eligible for an SBA loan.
Now, do you have to have a business that has something that's tangibly collateralizable, like real estate or equipment or things like that, or can service industries take advantage of SBA loans as well?
Service businesses are just as capable of, just as able to take advantage of SBA loans as others. Obviously, if you have collateral in your business, it does make the process a little bit easier, but it is not a hard and fast rule. It is not an absolute requirement. And the reason that SBA loans are often used and they're very popular is because the SBA, the way it works is that the SBA will guarantee 75% of the loan. And so what that allows is for a business owner who, doesn't have collateral, who typically might have difficulties in, getting this kind of financing. It allows them to still be able to get a loan because the SBA, because the government is guaranteeing. That's effectively, how the program works and why, a lot of business owners are able to, in fact, get financing by utilizing the SBA process.
Now, what are some things that a business owner has to have in order to get the best chance of getting the SBA loan? And what are some things that if you don't have it, then don't even bother?
So what I would generally tell people is that if you don't have if you don't have any historical cash flow or profits in your business, SB financing is probably not going to be a good option for you. The main thing that lenders are looking at is historical profits of the business by looking at a tax return. And so if you don't have that, it's still possible in some situations to get an SB loan, but it obviously makes it a lot more difficult, right? I would also tell people that if you need to work on your credit first, going for an SBA loan is not going to be a fruitful effort. They do have credit score minimums that are set by the SBA. And if you don't fall in those, if you don't fall within those parameters, it's going to be difficult to qualify for financing. So can you get an SBA loan if you don't have good credit? It's actually cut off by the SBA. So I would encourage you to go work on your credit score first before trying to apply for financing. That's really the only other qualifier I would give for people.
And then for business owners who have an existing business, they think they might have been kind of being smart by not showing any profit, right? By just putting their salary or the money that they're taking out of the business, and kind of not hiding the profit, but maybe just reallocating it into different buckets.
Yeah, writing it all off.
Right.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's the most common problem that I see with people, is that they do just that. And it makes a lot of sense from a tax perspective, because, why would you report any more profit than you absolutely have to and, get taxed on it? That's how most people think. And while that is the correct way to think about things most of the time, unfortunately for the purposes of getting an SBA loan, that is not how it works. And you will actually be disadvantaged by that. So.
And that's one of those things where if you're thinking about this, you better start planning for this, because it's hard to kind of make a rapid change, right? Like if all of a sudden you want to get the loan and you could have shown this profit, for the last 2 years, that would have probably helped you get it, or maybe even a bigger loan than you needed. But now you didn't do that. You're going to have to kind of do it at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it more difficult if you don't have cash flow. I have seen some people, like we had a client recently, he went back and actually amended a prior tax return, his most prior year's tax return, to not be as aggressive with some of the write-offs. And, what I mean by that is he didn't write everything off, right? And he went back to his tax return so he could do that. I've seen situations where that's done, but that's really kind of the only way you would otherwise get around it. You would have to go in and make an adjustment to your tax return to show, the profits that your business had. So, it's doable, but that's really the only way you can kind of get around it.
So now, SBA loans right now are available, right? Like if you have the qualifications, these aren't difficult to get if you know what you're doing, but they are available. This isn't a time when it's difficult to really get them, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, now it's arguably the easiest it's ever been, because the SBA has they've provided frameworks and guidance for lenders to say, like, hey, we want to make it easier for businesses to access this money. And they've adjusted some of the rules and regs so that it is easier for businesses to get money. Just for example, last year, one of the main things that they were doing throughout COVID was they were reducing they increased the guarantee amount. So right now, the guarantee is 75%. That's how much of a loan is guaranteed by the SBA. They had actually adjusted it during COVID so that it was even higher than that. The percentage of the loan guarantee is 90%. So the SBA has done different things such as that to make it easier for businesses to actually get this money, because, at the end of the day, they want businesses to be able to obtain this financing. They want them to be able to do this because it will make it easier for us to collectively economically recover if businesses have the money that they need. Lending volume went from 30 billion to 45 billion last year, on account of, just on the main SBA lending programs, not the EIDL and PPP, the disaster programs, just the main lending programs. It increased by a significant amount.
And with historic low interest rates, it's a good time that even if you don't kind of urgently need the money, it's a nice time to have the money. Correct.
Now is the best time to borrow money. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, why would I pay 6% interest on money that I'm not using? Well, the reason is because inflation right now is over 6%. So if you're able to borrow money at or equal to the inflation rate, you're effectively borrowing the money for free, right?
Right.
So, I've made that case to a couple business owners, but they don't think that way. Well, I don't want to pay more than 2%. It's wild, because if you have a business where you're not making enough money, if you can borrow an infinite amount of money at 2% and still not make money, you have a bad business model, right? It's not about how much money can you borrow. You just need to fix your business model.
So now let's talk about how 7A Accelerator helps their clients. What is kind of your ideal client profile?
So our ideal client profile is someone who is, and we don't necessarily based on revenue, it's more based on the cash flow, because cash flow is what's going to determine how much you can qualify for. Our ideal client avatar is someone who is netting over $500,000 a year and wants capital to scale capital to scale their business, whether it be for a business acquisition, a real estate purchase, whatever the case might be. That is our ideal client avatar, and kind of like who is easiest for us to work with. We work with business owners by helping them navigate the loan process, pair up with banks. And so, we can still help smaller businesses that aren't at those revenue and profit numbers. It's just obviously a lot easier if they're bigger. So
let's assume that this prospect is at that exact level. What does the process look like? So they come to you and they say, "Hey, Josh, I'm thinking of getting a loan. Where do you come in and how do you help them? Like, why can't they just go to their bank and say, 'Hey, I want an SBA loan'?"
Yeah, so that's actually probably the most common question we get, and it's a logical question. Why would you go to someone else if you can just go to your bank? Unfortunately, for most business owners, most banks are not good at executing on SBA loans. They might advertise it, they might claim they do it, but when you dig into the weeds of what they're really able to do, most SBA lenders are just flat out awful at doing loans. If you look at the loan data from the SBA, for example, Bank of America, most people, or a lot of people bank with Bank of America, right? You might think, okay, well, they're a big bank. They're obviously, going to do a lot of loans. If you look at the actual data on how many loans they actually do in the year, it's a very low amount. Same thing with Chase and Wells Fargo. If you look at the actual, dollar amounts they're approving too, it's all very low dollar amounts. I mean, if you need $1 million, good luck getting it from Wells Fargo unless you have, just as much collateral to pledge personally, right? So that's really the main reason is that I have a unique network of lenders that really understand how the SBA loan program was designed to work, right? Not requiring all this collateral and this and that. And so that's the main benefit that, I can demonstrate that we bring people is that, hey, we work with banks that are not going to be difficult with you in getting the financing you need. They're going to be able to help you actually get the money you want from an SBA loan. So that's how we help. We work with banks that understand the program and are not crazy sticklers like some of the other banks out there might be.
And so those banks may not be in the, close proximity of the client, right? They could be anywhere in the country.
Yeah. Most banks that are good at doing SBA loans are actually not going to have any sort of physical proximity to the client. And that's one of the biggest things that confuses people. They're like, oh, well, my neighborhood bank advertises SBA loans. Okay. They might advertise it, but it doesn't mean they're any good at it. And that's a dichotomy that a lot of people have a hard time reconciling, that, just because, hey, they claim they do it doesn't mean they're any good at it.
Now, are you actually helping them with the forms, or is it something like you're like, look, here's the form, fill it out, and then I will get it to the right bank? Like where does your service begin and end?
Yeah, so we do help answer questions about, how to fill out the forms and such. That's really not the core of where our value add is, because the forms are actually pretty self-explanatory. One of the biggest myths that I tell people is that, SBA loans are not complicated. They don't require, they don't require you to have, a CFA license to be able to fill out the forms, right? They're actually pretty straightforward. So we can help answer questions as they come up, but really where we are adding value is by making sure that the business owner is getting paired up with the best bank for their business.
Now, is there a ratio based on profits or revenue, gross revenue, that tells you how big of a loan you should go for? Like, what's the kind of the formula of deciding what's the appropriate amount to get a loan for?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good question, and one we get often. Hey, how much money can I qualify for? I tell people that a good rule of thumb is going to be 3 times your annual net income. That's kind of a good ballpark range of how much you can qualify for based on a 10-year term loan at 5.5%, which is where, most of these SBA loans are coming, right? They're panning out to be right now. So it also depends on, what you need. If you don't need that much money, there's really not much of a point to go apply for that much, right? If you only need $100,000, but you can qualify for 300 and you can only justify spending $100,000 with what you need, you could try applying for 300,000, but you might have a hard time justifying it to the bank as to why you need that full amount. And that's one of the things that, I tell people is that you have to be able to justify the loan amount, not just show that you can cash flow it with, the profits of your business, right?
And then the way that you're kind of going to justify it is you're going to explain how you're going to use the money, or is it something that you have to be in the process of buying something?
No. Most of the loans that we help business owners out with are actually not loans for business acquisitions. I mean, we do business acquisitions, real estate purchases. But a lot of the loans that we do are just for expansion capital. Like, hey, I have a business that does X amount per year. I'm interested in getting financing to help expand the business. Here's how much money I need. So we run into a lot of situations like that. And so it's not an absolute requirement that you per se have, a purchase or something you have to do. We do plenty of loans for people who do not have, a business acquisition or something like that they're working on.
So if somebody out there wants to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on the team, what is the website?
Best way to reach us is through the website at 7accelerator.com. And again, that's 7 accelerator.com. We have a link there where you can just, click schedule a call. If you'd like to have a conversation, see if an SBA loan would be a good fit for you. Got a team of guys who, take the calls and would be happy to chat with you to see if it might be a good fit.
And before we wrap, is there a story you can share, maybe a success story about somebody you were able to help, without naming their name or anything?
Yeah, well, so one of the more recent success stories that we had that I was glad we were able to get done was for it was a husband-wife combo. They were trying to buy the accounting firm from their dad. And so they had gone to a bank or two before who had turned them down. The dad was retiring. They needed about $1 million to purchase the accounting firm from him. And we were able to get one of the lenders that we work with to approve the deal for them. So they were able to take the keys and, buy the business that they had been working at for multiple years. And so they were obviously very excited about that and glad we're able to get it done for them. But that's just, one of the recent success stories that, I can point at for you.
And then also one of the benefits is not only the ability to match the right lender with the right client, but it's also maybe you help with the speed of getting these deals done.
Right. And that's why we, refer to the business as an accelerator. A big component of what we're doing is helping the business owners get it done in a quicker fashion than they would otherwise. Because, a lot of these business owners, could they have gotten the SBA loan on their own? Probably. But, they just didn't want to have to wait multiple months of back and forth and talking to multiple banks to figure out who's actually going to be able to help them and who's just kind of blowing smoke. So that's a big aspect of what we do, is helping them navigate who's legit, who's going to help them, and who's not. Right.
And what's your personal best in terms of getting a deal done?
My personal best is probably one of the deals that I did myself. I used SBA loans to buy some businesses when I was quite young. 19, 20 years old. And so one of the businesses that I bought was doing, $3 million in revenue a year. I think that was probably my best deal because it was when I was able to get done on my own. But, for a client, I think that accounting firm purchase was definitely one of the more challenging ones that we've had to overcome. There was a lot of different issues with it that, we had to work through. There was some financial issues with the historical performance of the business, and the buyers didn't have perfect credit, but we were still able to get a lender on board and get the deal done. And really, that's all that matters. So,
well, Josh, congratulations on all the success. One more time, the website.
7accelerator.com. Just number 7accelerator.com.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're doing important work. We appreciate you.
Awesome. Good talking with you guys, and looking forward to talking again in the future.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on High Velocity Radio.